And you're listening to Jesus Christ That's Funny with a couple of Jesus fans here. My name's Ethan Moore. I'm here with Pastor Dwayne Black.
Hey, how you doing? Nice to see you.
Good to see you too, man.
We have somebody special here today.
Yeah, that's right. We have our the long-awaited episode with Emily, our fan. She's a Jesus Christ That's Funny fan.
I'm the fan.
She's the one. Yeah, you've heard of her. She's the one. You've seen our downloads. Our downloads go up each week by one.
Yeah.
And that's Emily. That's her influence on this podcast.
The first time that you referred to me in this podcast, I was the what. Do we want to talk about what just happened outside? Do you remember that?
No, what just happened?
What happened?
That's how I was introduced into this podcast.
That was it.
Would you like for me to tell you what? Do we want to talk about what just happened?
What just happened?
And that was the day that I came and I talked to you about, yes, Love Wins.
Love wins.
The bumper sticker.
I'm totally lost here. What's going on?
Episode 1, you should listen.
Wow. This is starting. Emily's prickly. This is starting off like.
I'm the nicest person you know.
You are nice. It's starting off in a very confrontational manner, though. I'm still not sure what you're referring to.
I'm saying the very first episode that I was introduced as you have a fan. Now you all know that you have a fan.
Right.
The pastor said, do we want to talk about what just happened out in the hallway? And that's when I said, hey, I've been listening to the podcast.
Oh, I see.
But I was what?
What?
I was the what?
Oh, you were what happened?
I was what happened.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
She was the what?
All right.
Yeah, she was.
Do we want to talk about what?
Yeah. Yeah.
We want to talk about sure, Emily. What right before we started this podcast, you were saying that you wish that it could be a little bit more like a therapy session for me, and I was like, it's already way too much like that.
Oh, I
Let's talk about that.
I think that you could really go into like your feelings and the situations going on like real time in your life.
I already do too much of that.
And pose more questions. And then let the pastor give you some guidance.
I agree with her. I think she's right on. She's spot on.
I feel like we already do a lot of that, and I said that before the mics heated up, and then Emily said, "No, he lets you get away with way too much."
Yes.
Which I don't necessarily agree with that. I think he.
You don't have to believe it for it to be right.
I think, we sometimes I feel like this podcast is I open up too much on this podcast.
I don't think you do enough. No. Yeah.
It might feel that way to you, but from the outside, no.
What's happening right now? Is this an intervention?
We're actually here for
We're here to talk about your feelings, Ethan.
What about your feelings, Emily?
What would you like to know how I feel about?
Well, right before we started, Pastor asked you about suicide, or he asked both of us, and I said, let's do it. That's a joke, And then you said, I feel sorry for those people. And I'm like, why do you put yourself above? Like, what are your feelings about it?
How do you know I've not been there?
Well, that's what I'm saying. What your response to me indicated that
I said it was sad.
You said it's sad.
Yeah.
It's a sad place to be for anyone. It's a sad place to be for if you know someone that's in that place. It's sad.
So how do you feel about it? Besides the fact that it is sad. I'm just saying when you say it's sad, it sounds like separate, not very personal.
That's the most personal. It's emotion.
Well, it's like saying I don't know, the HIV crisis in Africa is sad. It's sad that Republicans and Democrats can't get along. It just, to me, it's like almost like there's not enough personal feeling attached to it when you put it like that.
There's a lot attached to it.
Okay.
Long pause.
Emily's nodding at me, so I'll just give commentary if we can't actually see you, if you're listening. But Emily, tell us about your emotions and feelings.
About?
I don't know, about anything. Okay, about suicide. We were just talking about that.
We're going in circles. It's sad.
That's it? That's just sum total of your feelings on the subject?
That's a pretty strong emotion.
Okay.
It's the absence of anything happy, and it's the absence of joy, and it's the absence of gratitude in your life, and it's the absence of love.
Well, the question, Pastor, that you posed to me last week or a couple of weeks ago was, when is it okay?
to commit suicide.
Yeah.
Is there a point? Is there a time that you really feel like it is an okay thing to do? And a lot of people feel very strongly that no, you should never take human life, even if it is your own. And it's you see people nowadays that are dying of cancer, and it's painful and it's agonizing, and there is no hope at all. And you question, when is it acceptable? And is it?
And I said, that's not suicide. That's just hastening the inevitable. That's just eliminating some pain. Suicide to me is, you know what I mean? I'm like, of course you should cut yourself if you're like going to die within a few days anyway or something like that. Like, why wouldn't you, I guess? Just going to create like more pain for everyone around you. We're all going to die, you know? But I think a more interesting question is, when is suicide okay for a healthy person? Someone who's not dying, not attached to machines. Is there any circumstance where it's okay then?
I had a cousin who committed suicide. He struggled and dealt with depression most of his life, and he finally, the only exit that he could see, the only thing that was available to him was suicide. And but he did it in a very, he wanted to make sure he really committed it. So I mean, he went out in the forest and he lit himself on fire. So I mean, there had to have been demons that were in him that made him get to that point. That type of releasing of his soul was agonizing, and it must have been. And something about that he felt he needed to do. Was he healthy? Physically, yes. Mentally, no.
Yeah. With that sort of thing, it's almost like, wow, I'm doing one last act here on this earth, and then they would choose something like that, like going up in flames. It makes you think, like, of course there must be some sort of symbolism attached to it.
Yeah.
What's he getting at?
Yeah. And I don't know if it was control of, like, I can control this, because I know that he felt very out of control. His emotions, his depression, his life. He was addicted and had been fighting that for a long time. But his addiction was basically to drugs that tried to level out his depression.
Oh, I see.
Yeah. So I don't know. I've run into lately a couple people that have been very ill with cancer, and there is no hope, and they're basically got 6-8 months, and you just that when you're there with somebody who's dying, and the pain is so incredible, and there's nothing you can do to help them. They can't get in front of the pain, with the pain management, and you just think, is there a point that we should realize that life, living like this, is not the hell that we should put them through?
I tend to think, Emily's being quiet over there, I tend to think that if the only thing, clearly the only possibility is, just more suffering, unconsciousness, or like fading in and out of consciousness
right.
on massive, quantities of, I don't know, probably opiates or something like that.
Yeah.
And, suffering for everyone around. I don't really see what the big deal is, like why we shouldn't. I'm like, I don't even count that as suicide. On the other hand, though, if someone's in a lot of pain,
right,
but they still have the ability to reach out and maybe touch someone else's life, maybe influence someone, maybe have a conversation that's going to affect someone else, even on their deathbed. I feel like if that's a possibility, then I'm like, well, maybe you shouldn't do it. So, I mean, that's almost where I would draw the line and say, like, or not that you shouldn't do it, but then I'm like, that's suicide. If you know what I mean, you're committing suicide if you still have the opportunity to go ahead and influence someone else's life.
Right.
If the only thing ahead is just pain and suffering for everyone around you, and it's going to be another 2 or 3 months of that, I'm like, that's not even really, that shouldn't even count.
But I mean, it is, you're dealing with something that's legal, something that's moral.
Well, the government counts it differently.
Yeah.
But I'm just talking about
I like
morally.
your counting seems to be good on that. What's your thought?
I think you're talking about there's a lot of different types of suicide.
One thing is euthanasia, one thing is suicide.
Right. Yeah. One is escaping from the pain, the physical torture, right, that there's no end to it. And that's one type. Another is when you have a healthy person, so to speak, that's just given up hope,
Right.
which
Yeah.
you discussed hope in a previous podcast.
Yeah. I don't remember which one, but it sounds like something I would have talked about.
Hope and joy.
You
and,
said don't
yeah.
believe in hope.
Oh, I said don't try it. It's a bad idea.
Don't try it. You advised against it.
Emily, maybe
Oh, man, she's got you.
well, maybe my role here isn't clear. I think my role on this podcast called Jesus Christ That's Funny is to make jokes.
Yeah.
So make light of the situation. Make jokes about suicide, jokes about hope, whatever. So that's why Emily always gives me like a stare, She fixes me with a gaze. It's a little bit terrifying. It's a withering gaze.
I would be worried if I were you.
I'm very worried.
It's just a pause before I share any thoughts.
Okay.
A long pause sometimes with you.
Are you going to share the thoughts now or?
No, but I think
Okay.
my grandfather passed away, and I think I talked to you about this last year, and I had a conversation with him. I went up to visit him in November, and he died the following, I think it was February. And on the day that he died, my grandmother had a conversation with him and basically said, I'm going to be okay. If you want to let go, go ahead.
Right.
And within, I think, 2 or 3 hours, he died. And he had been in the nursing home and had cancer. And it was a painful experience for him, So I do think that we have, I think his spirit, if you could use that, let go. And I think sometimes we have the ability to let go on our own, the way that he did, or some people take it upon themselves. There's different. I know there's been studies done on different types of suicide and what that means. Someone who, overdoses on something versus someone who shoots themselves,
right,
versus someone who lights themselves on fire. I mean, these are all horrible ways to end. But I am the eternal optimist. I believe that there's always hope. And I know that there are situations when it's not the case, but I had a wonderful experience with my grandfather, in the last days, and wouldn't trade that for the world.
Yeah, see, and I think that's like what we're talking about earlier. Like, if you can still reach out to someone and connect, then it's like, there's still hope there,
There's always hope.
Emily says there's always hope no matter what. So
always.
Well, that's interesting because I think there you kind of have shown where the two cases we talked about kind of blur into one another because, you can say, oh, well, the only thing ahead is just pain and suffering for the next few weeks and then the inevitable end. And then that's just euthanasia. It's almost like not even suicide. That was my take on it. But then you can, and on the other hand, you have someone who's struggling with depression or addiction or some other issues in his, maybe financial problems or dishonor, or something like that. And then you can say, well, that person, it looks like there's no hope for that person either. It looks like there's nothing but pain and suffering for that person ahead of, in the road ahead either. So, he can't or she can't imagine himself or herself out of that situation. And so that's why you would choose to end it. But maybe that's just another case of saying, well, no, there's no, but we would look at that externally and say, well, there's definitely hope. This person's healthy. This person could turn it all around.
Right.
So,
Well, and I think that it doesn't matter who you are, what your background is, what your experience in life is. I think that we've all had moments where we've wanted to check out.
Sure.
Not necessarily kill ourselves, but check out a life. Just get out of your skin, just escape, run. I think we've all had feelings of that, and they manifest in different ways. That's why the world of recovery is so big, is because those are people that used alcohol or drugs to escape. And for some people, that ends up being suicide.
So you're saying some people, they're not happy with life and they want to escape into oblivion? I can't imagine that. I have no understanding of that at all.
I think that we all have had that, but for suicide, it's the ultimate escape.
Yes.
And and it's the end of hope for them.
There's a finality
because
to it.
There's nothing that they can do to come back. And for the people that can make it through those dark moments, there is a way to come back. There's always hope.
That's really interesting because there's a story within the scriptures about Rahab, and Rahab is she's given a label as a prostitute, and it's always Rahab the prostitute, and it talks about she
maybe it was like an advertisement,
could have been.
Yeah, it was a paid sponsorship.
Just in case you didn't know, Rahab the prostitute.
Right. Call her.
The two spies go into Jericho, and they go to her house immediately, and they
Wonder why.
Well, that was a good question. So immediately,
Choose some house to go into. I don't know. Seems like the house.
Which house
I saw
should we
something
go
through the
into?
window that attracted me in.
There was a sign that said "Open."
It said Rahab the prostitute in red letters.
That's scarlet red. Yeah. So she, but what ends up happening is these spies stay with her, and and she hides them, which is really unusual that she does that. But the thing that's so unusual about
Is this the original hooker with the heart of gold?
No. Yes.
Right? She helps out the spies. I like this. This is where it all came from.
Well, the revolutionaries.
Archetype.
She helps out the revolutionaries, and what ends up happening with them is that they leave and they say, we'll protect your house, and when we invade, no one will come. And it says in the scriptures that she hangs a scarlet cord down, and the actual real translation of it is not cord; it's actually string, and it actually can be translated in two different ways. And I was talking to a friend of mine who's a rabbi, and he said, actually, the real translation is that she hangs down this string, which is translated into the word hope. She hangs down hope. And part of the midrashes later go on to that she becomes Joshua's wife, and she becomes a very lifted person within the community. And they always consider this idea of spirituality when somebody has gone down so low that they have become almost unspiritual, or and then come back up to God, that they're lifted up at a higher level because they have faced this darkness and come out. And so that's why I think I'm so impressed with people that have gone through recovery, is that they have gone to this dark place and they came out.
That's true. It's a miracle.
Well,
So
and
hope.
it says, I know, so I'm going to refer to the Bible, but I know there is a verse, and it's one of my favorite verses.
The Bible.
Yes.
That's not allowed on this podcast.
And it says that the reason that we go through things is so that we can be comforted by God, so that we can comfort others that have gone through what we have gone through. And that's the purpose of all of it. So if you have someone that's been in that dark place, if they hold on to hope, and if they get through it, then they can use that experience to help someone else that's been there,
Yeah.
And
Sure.
then it all has value, and it all has use, and it's the handing off of hope.
So you're saying that through Rahab's pain, she was able to sort of identify with the difficult situation of the spies? And she, you know what I mean? Like she was able to she identified with them, and then she was able to hold out hope because of that. I mean, are you interpreting the pastor's story? That's what I was getting at.
No.
Oh, okay.
Well,
Okay.
she was a woman, and so she was a prostitute, and so she had no husband, so she was at the lowest rung in this, but somehow she becomes the heroine,
And then she marries Joshua?
In the Midrash and the Talmud, that she marries Joshua, yeah.
I just like how Joshua was able to accomplish what many a man has tried to do and change a hoe into a housewife. It's like,
It's been done
perennially
millions
impossible.
of times.
Did I tell you about my wife? No.
I guess if you wanted a tangible translation from what you were saying is that for people that read that story, I'm sure that in her life she had felt shame, embarrassment, and had been, I'm sure her neighbors weren't that friendly to her. And I think that
Some of them are probably really friendly.
but for her to be used in the Bible,
Yeah.
for her to be chosen, and then for her to come out of that dark place that she was
Right.
in, and to have a better life, than someone with shame in their own life, and pain and embarrassment and ridicule and people that know that they have made mistakes think, okay, it's okay. This is where I was. Something needs to happen so that I can change and become better. Make sense?
Yeah, I think so. I guess I guess just connecting with our topic of suicide and all that, I think maybe what happens, we were talking about recovery and things like that. I guess what happens to a lot of people is they come to this moment where things are very dark, and then there's almost like I feel like, I've been here, and I feel like it's like at some point there's just a path, there's a fork in the road, and you have a, you've sort of been thinking for years maybe, like, I'm going to have to make a decision one way or the other. And then when things get really dark, you come to that decision point, and it's like, well, I can either, go towards the path of hope or despair. And maybe for some people, it comes in that form of like suicide. Like maybe my choice is actually as stark as to kill myself or to reach out and ask for help. And maybe for other people, the choice is more subtle. But I think the idea that at that moment of darkness, you connect with if you choose hope, you connect with someone else who's probably been in similar situations. Makes a lot of sense.
Right.
And, and also, there's, I think a lot of it is you have to deal with the situation of what do you think is going to happen after,
After what?
After the death, after your death. Is this the end? Is this the jumping off place? Or is there something beyond this? And so I think that has to influence people's choices in some manner, somewhere.
You mean like which cemetery to be buried in or something like that?
Right,
He
exactly.
means like the afterlife. And you all discussed this in another episode.
Oh yeah, I don't buy into that hocus pocus, but
I know
you guys feel free to. I don't know. To me, it's just I like the idea of just sort of slowly rotting into the ground and peacefully.
I will be the first to greet you at the gates.
That's right.
Do you believe in heaven,
Ethan,
Emily?
come on,
I do. Yes, I do.
Here's something about heaven that it was never enticing to me. I remember, I was raised Christian fundamentalist, and I remember they said, "Oh, in heaven, little boy." I was a child. They said, "Oh, well," they told us about hell, and it sounded pretty bad. And then they said, with heaven, they said, "Well, in heaven, you sing all day long hymns to God." And I was like, "Yeah, okay. What else?" They said, "Oh, that's all. Just for all eternity, you sing hymns? You mean those boring church songs? We sing that all day." "Yeah, and the streets are made of gold." "I don't care about the streets," I said. Just don't want to sing church songs for eternity.
And that's why you have a grown man in front of you that does not believe in heaven.
I just,
Or Santa Claus.
Oh yeah, my parents put the kibosh on Santa Claus early.
That was good.
But I feel like it just sounded dull, The Christian, the Protestant view of heaven is super dull to me,
But and that's because Christianity comes from Judaism. Our grandfather is Judaism, and they never thought of heaven as something like that. And this whole idea of streets of gold, I think God could come up with better things than that. I think that there's something more creative beyond that. But the idea of and again, it brings us back to the same thought, and that in the Jewish faith, there's more concern of bringing heaven down here to this place,
right,
here, than what happens afterwards or what goes on beyond that. And so I think it keeps coming back to this point that it is about us almost mirroring heaven, and the idea of being love, grace, peace, hope, generosity. That those are all things that we accept, and we start to bring heaven crashing down into earth. And how uncomfortable would you be if heaven crashed into earth tomorrow? Would there be things in your life that you go, won't be doing that anymore?
Like what?
I'm asking you. I don't know.
I don't know. Here's a question. Yeah. Why? And maybe this is what you're getting at. Why is heaven so mind-bendingly dull? I mean, like look at the Islamic conception. You get to have sex. Why is there no sex in heaven in the Protestant way of looking at things?
I don't know if they really, virgins. Really?
I don't really care.
Those
I'd rather
don't
have.
exist to
I'd
me.
rather have. I'd rather have 72.
Really?
Yeah,
Rahabs.
that's
I'd rather have 72 Rahabs
That's
or
it, yeah.
experienced prostitutes. I would be better at it. But I just think, why is it? Why is the conception of heaven so? What's the word I'm looking for? Scrubbed of any life and color whatsoever.
The answer is in the question, in my opinion.
Antiseptic is the word, I guess.
Because look at who is describing it.
A bunch of old white British dudes, Protestants.
People that don't know.
Right.
People that haven't been there. It's hard to explain something it's hard to understand something that no one understands.
Well, why believe in heaven or an afterlife at all? That's why I don't see why there's any. I don't see what the angle is in terms of. I mean, of course, there's an angle in it if you're saying, "I want you to die for my cause," Then you want heaven, you want hell. If you want to say, if you're a World War I general and you're saying to the young men of Europe, go off and die in a trench somewhere, great, good reason to believe in heaven. It gets the troops motivated. The same thing is happening in the Middle East right now. But as far as just overall, in terms of humanity, like where is there what's the good thing about believing in heaven? I just don't see it, or hell. Why not? I like the idea what Pastor Dwayne just said. I like what you said about let's bring heaven here on earth. That makes more sense to me.
Yeah, because I see heaven every day here. I mean, I really do. I see people's lives changed every day, and I see things that people reaching out to other people that, and you just go, this is what it's supposed to look like, and it doesn't happen all the time, and but it does happen enough that I kind of go there. It's like a ping on you suddenly you're starting to go, I get it. I see it. I know what it looks like. I can almost touch it.
And I feel like that's something I want to be a part of, that's what I want my role on this earth. Emily, before the mics heated up, I was talking about my career and how I had this career before and all this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And I never felt fulfilled. I always felt like I just fell into something and I guess I make money at this, so I should do it.
Right.
And to be honest, like what I'm doing now with my life, I feel much more connected. Like this is what I'm supposed to be doing, like I'm helping other people. I'm connecting with other people.
Like you found a purpose.
I found a purpose, and that's very meaningful for me. And that's, I think feeling driven like that is just very exciting. And if you feel like you're making a difference and making a positive change in the world and trying to bring a little bit of heaven, to use that metaphor, then it's going to change the way you think about everything. And that's a great thing. But as far as believing in an afterlife, I don't see the connection. As far as, and this goes to our suicide question. We were talking about, what is it about our consciousness, our individual consciousness, that we think is so gosh darn important? Like I need me, the entity, the stream of thoughts that's been going in my organic brain. I need that to continue even after I die. Like, why does it matter to the universe at all? Isn't it more important to say that all of us matter, that we're all connected, and that's what matters, whether we're born or whether we die, before we're born, after we're born, after we die, we're all connected. Does the actual individual consciousness have to persist and experience things like heaven or hell in order for any of this to matter? I would say it doesn't. The present matters, not an afterlife.
Well, I think the present matters absolutely, but I think there's different reasons why people would believe in heaven or would want to. It's comforting when you lose someone to think of heaven and to think that their spirit has gone on and that they are living with their Creator and, where God's will is done. And, in the Lord's Prayer it says, on earth as it is in heaven. So we know what it's like on earth. Wouldn't it be exciting to think that there's a place where it's right all the time?
But I think that's that aspirational place that we were just talking about. That's that idea that we can bring heaven and earth together. In other words, it should be on earth, perfect, and let's move towards that.
Right.
But as far and so in other words, you need an ideal of perfection. You need an idea of you need a concept of something perfect so that we can improve things. But as far as believing that it's a real place, that it's actually some place that you go after you die, I don't find it compelling. But it's an article of faith, maybe. That's another thing too. You might say, well, my religion requires me to believe that it's actually a physical place. And then it's like, okay, well, whatever. You believe your religion.
Well, but
that's cool.
That would be subscribing to the rules of the religion. If you have faith,
right,
and if you know that you know that you know that heaven exists, that's it.
But the rules of the religion, I mean, I feel like Pastor, I've talked about this a lot on this podcast. Like Jesus, he wasn't so concerned about specifically what you believed, right? He's like, just come and hang out with me, and we'll rap.
Well, and Mother Teresa was that way too. She used to say, that was her big line, was just come and see. And so I think Jesus was the same way in a lot of ways. He was, come follow me.
Right.
See how I live this life connected to God and in tune with God. Because I think if you see it and you can experience it, it is thrilling and exciting. And I think that's why people followed him everywhere.
Okay.
Yeah.
So let me ask you a question.
All right.
So you know that I believe in heaven.
Okay, I do now. You just said it.
You knew that before.
I presumed so because of I know you're sort of more on that side of Christianity.
So one of your presumptions about me was correct. So yes, I believe in heaven. So from your perspective, you're super intelligent, levitating over all of common sense.
I don't have that perspective.
From your perspective...
You're assuming about me. Anyway, from my perspective, let's just say...
From your perspective, what's your opinion on someone that believes?
I say, great. Do
you see it as a weakness, that it's a coping mechanism to understand something they don't understand and to feel better about difficult things? If they go, okay, well, everything is just great and perfect in heaven, and that's where your dog is, and that's where your grandfather is, and if you need to believe that, then you go right ahead. Do you see it as a weakness? Do you see it as a false philosophy?
I don't think I never have consciously felt that way. I feel like, because I was raised that way, and it's not like when I eventually rejected that brand of Christianity that I said. I mean, there was a period probably where I was very rebellious, in my teens and early 20s, where I was like, yeah, those guys are all stupid. But I think I got over that pretty quickly, and then I started my own search and looked at every religion. I ended up doing all my undergraduate and graduate work on religion and world religions and stuff like that. And so I saw all the different kinds of beliefs and, Buddhist conceptions of heaven and things like that, and Hindu, and just Islamic, every religious perspective on all those different kinds of things. Metaphysics, I guess, is what it would be called. Is that the right word, Pastor? Yeah. And so I just saw that there was a lot of different ways to believe. And I think the way I look at it now, and I think the way I've looked at it for really years and years now, is that I don't have any. I don't have anything against religious people or people that believe in have chosen one of those particular choices of all the different conceptions of heaven or hell, or because why should I? I don't know either. I've come to my own feelings about these things, and I might argue and say, well, this sounds a little silly, but ultimately I don't judge someone for believing in it and say that's wrong. Like, you're wrong? I can't say that. How do I know? I don't know. Right? I don't find it compelling for me, but that's me.
Because there's not enough evidence.
It's not so much that there's it's not just evidence, because Pastor, we were talking about this too recently, which is you said that we were talking about this in terms of the idea of progress.
Yes.
Remember?
Yes, yep.
And it was a couple episodes ago, and you're saying, no, it's Martin Luther King. The arc of history is long. What is it?
The arc of history is long and bends towards justice.
Right. And I said, I don't think so. I'm not sure. Because you look at...
You wrote me a long thing about this.
I did, on Facebook. I was like, here's what I think. Because I think that if you look at the evidence, to use that word again, Emily. I think if you look at the evidence, there's nothing saying that we're definitely leading in one direction or another. We seem to be at a decent place right now in terms of progress, but I feel like there's no. Pastor just did the joint hitting motion to his lips there. You couldn't see it if you're listening, but. So
I'd like to be here in person so I can see him roll his eyes at what you say.
See, she thinks
So
you
that
let me off too easy,
when I'm at home listening and I'm rolling my eyes at something you're saying, like this is worth being here for.
He doesn't let me off easy at all. It's just you can't see him. It's just the sarcasm is dripping with everything he says. No, but I
don't know what you're talking about.
Okay, so I lost my train of thought there, but I guess what I was trying to say is that I don't see evidence. I don't see evidence saying that we're definitely moving in a direction or another. I think if you looked at the world 115 years ago or something like that, you look at the world at the turn of the century, you would say, well, definitely we're moving up. We're doing fine. No problem.
Right.
And then you look 15 years later and the entire world is deluged under a war, which is bloodier and more terrible than anyone could have imagined. And you can look at that maybe if you went back 3,000 or 4,000 years and looked at the Bronze Age collapse. You just right before that happened, no one expected it. And I just think that there's no necessity that we're moving towards progress. But I have hope. And I think that for me, faith is actually faith in spite of evidence. I think if you look at the evidence, it actually doesn't wash out one way or the other. I don't think there's evidence that there is God. I don't think there's evidence that there's that we're moving in a good direction, but I choose to believe in one thing or the other because I have faith. I don't know how else to explain it. That's actually where it breaks down. It's almost, and if I could say that there was enough evidence, and therefore, then I wouldn't need faith. You know what I mean? If I could just say, well, there's enough evidence that there's a heaven, there's enough evidence that there's a God, then I don't need faith. I just look at the evidence and make a conclusion.
So what do you have faith in?
That's a good question. I have faith. I think the fact that we can have this discussion about God or about heaven or about the possible inevitability of progress, or the possible progress of the human race, and the fact that we seek to have that hope. Maybe what you called optimism at the beginning of the show, Emily. Maybe that's God. That's what I have faith in, is that there's a possibility for optimism. Maybe almost another way of saying what you were saying earlier about where there's life, there's hope, right? As long as there's still life, there's a possibility.
You can't lose hope.
Yeah, and to me maybe that's almost like what God is or something like that. And that's where I have faith.
But see,
I don't know.
What we're doing right here is an ancient, sacred ritual of talking about God and our
theology
and what matters.
Right?
Yeah. And this has been going on for thousands and thousands of years. And so we are interacting in something that's very sacred, actually, and trying to decide what's important, what's not, and where is God in this, and how is God in this.
Yeah, the fact that we've been doing it for thousands of years ago says something to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're getting better at it.
And I think that God is kind of laughing right now, because here's three people trying to figure out, what he is, what he's about, what our afterlife will be like, what spirit is, what hope is. And
we'll see. One thing go ahead. I'm
our
sorry.
tiny little minds can't possibly fathom.
And see, I say, first of all, I'm always careful about, I don't know, to me, you're like, God is laughing.
Not
I don't know if
at
God laughs.
us like we're ridiculous. Laughing as in it's amusing to him that we have come together and are spending our time and together trying to understand him, trying to understand life, hope and love and faith. And, with the words that we have and the way that we communicate with each other, it's impossible. It's like trying to teach chemistry to a baby.
Right.
Yeah, but the one thing that's kind of interesting about it is that there are times I feel like our faith is we've forgotten the plot. We've missed. There's a simplicity to following Jesus, and that is that there's this kind of simplicity that we have, that Jesus came to show us how to have this relationship with God, and to love other people. And that's pretty good. And we miss that point. You know, when you say Christians, a lot of times you don't think, oh, those are the people that just talk about love all the time and are so concerned about, you know, we have other images that kind of popped in our head. And so sometimes conversations like this bring us back to a point of like, whoa, 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 this was about love. This was about love.
Well, and maybe not so much that he's laughing, but he's smiling.
Yeah.
He's smiling down on us.
Why do you presume that God has, God is something that would laugh or smile? Maybe.
Because he created us. We can laugh and smile. We were created in his image.
Maybe.
His laughing, smiling image. You read the book, right?
Maybe we created him.
In all those college courses. Didn't you read the book?
Which book?
The Bible.
Oh, I've had to read that when I was little, many times.
You should go back and read it again.
Wow.
It's a good one. There's one right there.
There's
Top
a lot
shelf.
of there's a lot of them here. We are in a church, for God's sake. Well, I don't know. I guess I don't know. I'm not a Christian, so I'm not down with the Bible necessarily. In the same. I don't want to say I'm not down with the Bible, but I don't view it maybe the same way as you do. I'm a Jesus fan.
I heard that.
Yeah.
You know what would be an interesting exercise for you?
Okay.
If you would like one. If you read the Bible, and so you're in recovery, you know the 12 steps.
Sure.
When you read scriptures, just take a piece of paper, 1 through 12, and just about every story, just about every verse can go in one of those 12 steps. And even if you don't really believe in the Bible, you will begin to believe in something that is greater than yourself, greater than your own understanding.
Okay.
Emily,
I want you to do an exercise. I want you to go and go to the bookstore and get the Quran and the Bhagavad Gita and do the same thing. Because I think you might be able to find some of the same things in there.
Probably.
Right? I don't see, and I think the reason that is because I think that the 12 steps are getting at some kind of they're getting really at that authenticity as human beings, that kind of honesty that seems like it's necessary for us to feel connected to things, and a lot of it has to do with staying connected to other people. Having good relationships.
Yeah.
I think that's, and if anything, we've talked about this before, if God is anything to me, God is the relationships that we have, is the connections between things.
I would agree.
Yeah, I think Jesus even said that, that wherever 2 or 3 of you, gather, there I shall be. There's something about connecting to each other. That's one of the things that, in the rooms that we have, I get such a kick out of is that even with connections that people have and arguments or disagreements, there's a connection. They come, and they keep coming back, and they have faith, and they have, and even if they don't believe in, a higher power and they name it God, they do believe that there's a higher power, and they realize it's not them, and they turn it over to whoever or whatever that is. That's cool. That's great. That's good stuff.
Yeah, it seems necessary to. Yeah. I mean, spiritual growth requires believing in something greater than you, I think. You know, and I think that's the key, and that's what you do find in all of these. It's like you have an object of worship or veneration or something that's beyond you, and also is, in some way perfect or is better than anyone could ever be, and it creates a way of trying to. I don't know. Maybe it's the same thing as heaven or something like that. It creates a sense of perfection or something that you can try to strive toward, but that requires you to honestly strive towards something that's not like material, not just like making more money or getting more esteem in the eyes of your fellow human beings. It's something beyond all that.
Yeah, it is. I think that there's a spiritual side to it, and I think also there's a mystery to it, and that I have lately found myself more and more feeling good about a mystery. And
Yeah, see, and that's the other thing. That's the other reason that I don't want to believe in heaven, because I don't want to mess with the mystery.
Yeah.
You know, it's not part. I mean, why should I presume that I would know?
Right. And
That one that one particular religion would have it pinned down better than another, and that I could pick out the right one. You know, it hasn't been my path. Emily, if anyone who does pick out a particular one, I don't judge them, but it hasn't been my path.
Well, I don't have a particular religion. I just believe in the Bible.
I thought you were a Protestant. Okay.
I'm just a Jesus fan.
All right. Emily's a Jesus fan too. Well, we're all Jesus fans.
A Southern Jesus fan.
she does have a bit of a Southern accent. You
Oh,
catch
yeah.
that? Yeah.
Emily's a real Southern belle.
She
you know.
is.
I am. Oh, and I brought you all gifts today.
See, I knew
Oh,
it.
man.
I bet if you threw
I
like a
didn't know
dinner
I-
party, it would be like super
Over the
well
top.
hosted. Yeah.
There might be canned cranberries.
Yeah.
Oh, here we go.
Oh, ouch.
Wow.
Ouch.
And I didn't yell at you over that.
Thanksgiving, she did.
That was the thing. She
man.
got more. Emily got more mad if you're following along at home. Emily got more upset about the canned cranberries than she did about
Anything
my
else.
blasphemous jokes
Yeah.
every week.
No, I feel for the people that have to prepare the whole meal, and then there was such judgment from both of you all were on the same page with the
Yeah.
canned cranberries.
rarely
and you
agree,
even
but-
said that that was the one thing that you were making in your meal
Yeah.
for your family.
Yeah.
Was the cooked cranberries.
Because you basically get the cranberries, dump them in some water and sugar, and then you heat it up for like 20 minutes.
So guess who made cranberries at Thanksgiving this year?
Who?
Emily,
Me.
she's raising her hand.
It was good, wasn't it?
I can't go against my pastor's words.
Wow.
The judgment.
Oh, no.
All right. Well, we should probably end this episode there, but we'll have more next week.
Yeah, that'll be good.
How about that?
It's very good. Have a great Valentine's Day, huh?
Yeah. Have a great Valentine's Day. Be sure to venerate Saint Valentine. What did he do? Do you even know?
No, I really don't. Yeah, I don't know
Isn't
what
your
Saint
job to
Valentine-
know?
I don't know what St. Valentine did. I think he got rid of rats and something in the city.
I
And
think
it's
that
President's
was
Day.
Patrick.
Yeah. It is President's
On
Day.
Monday. So
yeah.
go buy a mattress.
Hey, that's good.
Is that a thing you do on President's Day?
Doesn't everybody?
Is this a Southern tradition I don't know about?
No, don't you watch TV and see the ads?
Right. It's
It's
all
the president's.
all over.
It's all mattress sales.
You don't watch a lot of television, do you?
No. I mean, I watch
Yeah.
some on-demand stuff, but I don't
Yeah.
watch I never watch TV that has commercials. It's like a rule I have. I mean, I just don't. I can't sit still for it.
That's good.
There's hope for you yet.
All right. Well, if you're listening at home, we hope you enjoyed this episode, and we encourage you to check out the Sanctuary Church's website, which is what,
Yes.
Pastor?
It is the Sanctuary Church, FTL.org. And you can go on there and see what we got going on and all the things that we have happening around here.
Lots of exciting stuff.
And what are you doing?
I've got shows coming up. I've got a lot of stuff going on. So if you want to find out about that, follow me on Instagram at EthanIsNotFunny. That's my Instagram. You can check out my website at ethanmorecomedy.com. Yeah, and Emily, do you want to give out your home phone number or something like that?
No,
Do you have Instagram?
no,
Okay.
no.
Not that we
I
would
have an
be able
account
to
that
know
I
about.
follow people, but I don't have. I've never posted
You
anything.
don't post anything. You're a lurker.
Well,
I think that's what it's called when you don't post, right? It's a lurker. Shadowy lurking character.
no things that my kids are involved in.
Yeah, good.
They're they're the student ministry. They'll post hey, come
Right.
serve at this from 7 to 9 on Tuesday night. And if you don't follow, if you don't participate in that and all the social media, you don't know what's going on.
Yeah, you miss out,
You
right?
really do. You really
So do you, when you see something you like, do you
Push
hit
the little heart button. I
Yeah.
do.
Yeah.
See, Emily's very selfless. She gives out hearts,
I'm
and
always
she
giving
doesn't
out
expect
love.
anything in
Giving
return.
love, that's
She's not looking for people to like her picture. She wants to
No.
give out the love.
And there's still people that follow me, and I don't know why because I've never posted anything. But I give out the love.
Well, that's good.
Maybe the people just want love. They're like, if I follow you, maybe you'll heart something I.
That's because love wins. Yeah.
All right, love wins here on Jesus
Perfect.
Christ, That's Funny. How about
Perfect.
that? All right, well, we'll see you next time. Until then, I'm Ethan Moore.
And I'm Pastor Dwayne Black.
And I'm the fan.
Yeah.
Emily the fan.
Emily.
And we're all